Thank you for joining this webinar today. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Shannon Michael, and I currently serve as the subject matter expert for youth physical activity and physical education in the school health branch at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Division of Population Health. The purpose of today's webinar is to define and describe comprehensive school physical activity programs, and for short, we call it CSPAP, and strategies to meet performance measures for CSPAP in 1305. The specific objectives for this webinar are to define youth physical activity recommendations and the current status. I'm sorry. I don't know if everybody's seeing my text for the objectives. I am not seeing that. I just see the words all on top of each other.
Oh, no, yeah, I see just fine. Define and describe.
I will keep going then. I will keep going. And then to describe and define and describe a comprehensive school physical activity program. And then to describe the expectations for CSPAP in 1305. And finally, to explain the CSPAP process and how states can support districts and schools. So let's go ahead and get started. There we go. I see all my words now, so that will be very helpful to know.
Wow. Huh.
Yep. So we want to look at the average pattern of activity for children and adolescents. The National Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans recommend that children and adolescents should do 60 minutes or more of physical activity. Most of the 60 or more minutes a day should be spent on aerobic activity. As part of their 60 or more minutes, youth should include muscle strengthening on at least 3 days of the week and bone strengthening on at least 3 days of the week. It is also important to encourage youth to participate in physical activities that are appropriate for their age, that are enjoyable, and that offer a variety. The biggest takeaway message is that we want children and adolescents to be active and play 60 minutes every day. Before we talk about how to accomplish this, let's understand where we are in meeting this recommendation. Based on the results from the 2011 Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance Survey, the YRBS, we know that only 28.7% of high school students achieve the recommended 60 minutes per day every day of the week. In addition, we know that only 31.5% of high school students attend physical education daily. We want these numbers to go up, so how do we do that? And that's hopefully what we're going to answer today. While there are many different environmental factors such as families, healthcare organizations, and the media that can help increase youth physical activity, schools play a unique role. About 95% of the nation's children and adolescents are enrolled in schools, and they typically spend about 6 to 7 hours per day for up to 13 years of their life. Therefore, schools may be one of the most effective settings in the community to increase physical activity among students. Providing opportunities for physical activity in schools benefits both the school and students. We know that students who are physically active are better physically, mentally, and emotionally, which helps them do better academically in school as well. And these opportunities also can help students achieve some or all of the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity. So how are schools doing? Based on the results from the School Health Policies and Program Studies, SHIPS, we know that only about 3.8% of all elementary schools, 7.9% of all middle schools, and 2.1% of all high schools provided physical daily education. And we know that 26% of elementary schools did not provide regularly scheduled recess for students in all grades. And less than half of elementary schools had students participate in regular physical activity breaks during school, and less than half of all schools supported or promoted a walking or bike to school program. So what's the answer to improving these numbers? Both CDC's school health guidelines to promote healthy eating and physical activity and the U.S. strategies to increase physical activity among youth promote a comprehensive approach to youth physical activity in schools. The rest of today's presentation, we're going to discuss the components and process of a comprehensive school physical activity program. But before we do that, let's take our first poll. And Amparo, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Great. All right, so you'll see on your screen a poll question. How familiar are you with the Comprehensive School Physical Activity Program? And we have people responding. We'll give you just a few more seconds to finish your responses, and we'll close the polls and we'll share those results in just a few seconds. All right, I will close the poll and share the results. Looks like somewhat familiar was the
great.
Popular answer.
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, I can see way over half are either somewhat familiar or very familiar, which is great. So this first section, when we talk about the components, will be a review for you, which is fine because I want it to build. I want to be able to share with you what the components are, what the process is, and what that means for 1305. So let me go ahead and move to the next screen. So again, some of you all might be familiar with the history of CSPAP or how it came to be, but I wanted to outline this for you. As you know, there's a long history of physical education, recess, and before and after school activities. These activities, however, were executed in a siloed way. So in 2008, AFERD came out with a position statement on comprehensive school physical activity programs. And in the same year, the physical activity guidelines for Americans were released that supported a multi-component approach to physical activity in schools. Further, Beatley and Castelli wrote a couple of seminal articles on leading a comprehensive school physical activity program. And then in 2010, the First Lady's Let's Move campaign was launched. To show support for this campaign, AFERD started the Let's Move in Schools initiative, which focused on comprehensive school physical activity programs to help provide opportunities for kids to be more active. AFERD also created the Director of Physical Activity Certification Program to educate professionals on what is CSPAP. Finally, in 2013, strategies to increase physical activity among youth were released that clearly supported this comprehensive approach to physical activity. And of course, the national Let's Move Active Schools initiative was started in 2013. And the efforts started by AFERD back in 2001 are now reflected in this national initiative. So that gives you kind of a sense of how it came to be. And so a comprehensive school physical activity program is a multi-component approach. The goals of CSPAP are for schools and districts to use all opportunities for students to be physically active, for students to meet the nationally recommended 60 minutes of physical activity each day, and for students to develop the knowledge, skills, and confidence to be physically active for a lifetime. So a CSPAP has 5 components: quality physical education, physical activity during school, physical activity before and after school, staff involvement, and family and community engagement. I'll now briefly describe each of these components. And again, I know some of you all are familiar with these as we've gone out in the poll, but however, some of you all are not. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page as we go through, as we build in this presentation. So physical education is the foundation of CSPAP. It provides the opportunities for students to learn knowledge and skills needed to establish and maintain physically active lifestyles. The goal is to implement quality physical education. I just want to cover what these are because you're accountable for these things in both the basic and enhanced funding that you receive. So adequate instructional time, all classes being taught by qualified PE specialists, proper equipment and facilities, adaptations for students with disabilities, opportunities to be physically active most of class time, well-defined lessons. It also includes not using physical activity as punishment, appropriate use of physical activity and fitness assessment tools, ongoing opportunities for students to conduct self-assessments and practice self-monitoring on physical activity, And of course, and very importantly, the foundation is well-developed, planned, and sequential curricula for physical education that follow the national standards. So the funding you get for BASIC should help districts and schools implement quality physical education, which is the foundational component of CSPAP. The two aspects that make up physical activity during school include classroom activity breaks and recess. Both of these contribute to activity levels and help kids get their 60 minutes. Research has shown that even 5 to 10 minutes of activity contributes to cognitive health, and these opportunities can be offered to all grade levels. As for recess, we hope students have recess for at least 20 minutes per day. What has seemed to work is activity zones, which include semi-structured activity that involves activity stations such as jump rope, four square, hopscotch stations. Also active supervision that includes teachers helping kids to be more active, available equipment, and then multiple approaches, which is a combo of these three things. For secondary schools, drop-in physical activity might be an option. That is a designated time and space for students to be physically active. For example, basketball in the gym before lunch. Physical activity before and after school provide opportunities for students to practice what they have learned in physical education, to work toward the nationally 60 minutes of daily physical activity, and to engage in safe, social, and supervised activities. And finally, to identify activities that they enjoy and might engage in long term. Before and after school, physical activities might include active commuting to schools, such as walking and biking to school programs, or a walking school bus, which is a group of kids walking to school with an adult present. Physical activity, walking and running clubs, intramurals, and these programs are voluntary, student-centered, and give equal opportunity for all students to participate. Also, before and after school physical activity programs can be coordinated with community-based organizations such as the Y or Community Parks and Recreation, and delivered in school settings. Schools can even establish a formal joint use agreement with these organizations. School staff play an integral role in a school's CSPAP. We want staff involved in the school physical activity program, for example, get them to offer classroom activity breaks. We also want to find out what staff want and try to meet their needs. For example, services they want could be part of a staff wellness program that could include medical screenings, brown bags, walking programs, fitness opportunities, and that these physical and they can also offer physical activity breaks during meetings. And really, what the importance of this is, in terms of involving staff, is so that they can be great role models for students. When families are active together, they spend additional time together and experience health benefits. We want them involved and engaged in the school community, and they could be huge advocates for physical activity. Specifically, parents, guardians, or other family members can support a comprehensive school physical activity program by participating in parent guardian-led activities, evening or weekend special family events, or by serving as physical education or physical activity volunteers, including youth sports. Bottom line is that coordination is key for CSPAP. The goal of CSPAP is to build up a physical activity program in the school, not about one-time activities. Again, it's a holistic approach to school physical activity. Synergy across all 5 components is critical, and it's important to determine how each component complements the others. Communication and engaging stakeholders are essential in the CSPAP process. We're now going to talk about the CSPAP process, which will reinforce how this coordination is supposed to happen. I will also explain what this means for you in terms of 1305. But before we do that, we have another question for you. Turn it over to you, Amparo.
All right. So this is the exercise where we will be using the Q&A feature again. And so when you read this question, what are 2 professional development trainings you have planned to offer to help districts and schools establish, implement, and evaluate CSPAP? Go on ahead and type your responses again in the Q&A box that opens up when you click on the Q&A menu item. And we'll give you a few moments to think about some professional development trainings that you can either offer or that you already have planned to offer. And we're getting some responses in. We'll give you a few more moments. Shannon, do you want to go on ahead and pull up the log?
Yep, I'm doing that right now. Great, I see some of the trainings. And so what I see here is already, I see that some of you all are providing professional development on the components. So those 5 topics that I just talked about: physical education, PA during school, PA before and after school, staff involvement, and family and community engagement. I don't see that one, but I see that some of you all are offering PD on that type, on the content. And then I also see where some of you all are providing PD on the process, and we're going to talk about the process now. So, so let me move us on to the next slide. So just to recap, we've talked about the rationale for schools to provide multiple opportunities for physical activity to students, and then we discussed the multiple component approach to physical activity called CSPAP. Now I want to make this really relevant to you and what this means in terms of 1305. Most of you on the phone have been funded for basic and enhanced. I want to show you how the work fits together across these 2 funding levels. If you've been funded for basic, your focus is on quality physical education and recess. Specifically, you're working on policies for these 2 topics and developing professional development opportunities and a technical assistance process, so that schools and districts are going to do a really good job of implementing physical education in recess. If you've been funded for enhanced, your focus is on CSPAP, and we know that physical education is the foundation of CSPAP, and another important component is physical activity during school, which, if you remember, includes recess and classroom activity breaks. As you can see here, your basic funding is helping you with these 2 components of CSPAP. And for enhanced funding, you also need to address the other 3 components as well. So staff involvement, family and community engagement, and before and after school activity. And before and after school physical activity. Folks have asked me which components should they focus on first. Well, based on our funding, physical education and physical activity during school should be tackled first. But again, for enhanced funding, you really need to be addressing all 5 components. But if you need a place to start, that's where I would recommend starting. Here are the performance measures you're responsible for meeting. For this presentation, I'm going to focus on the first 3 bullets, which focuses on CSPAP, specifically establishing a CSPAP, implementing a CSPAP, and evaluating a CSPAP. And you're providing either professional development or technical assistance on those 2 aspects. However, I want to note that the last bullet is the last bullet, number of state-level multi-component physical education policies for schools developed and adopted by the state. That performance measure is also included in your basic funding. And the second to last bullet is really talking about the implementation of quality physical education. So looking at percentage of schools that provide or require daily physical education. We're talking about quality physical education, and it's based on state-level policy. So I just wanted to mention that. But again, we're going to focus on those first 3 bullets and hopefully answer those questions. Up to now, we've only discussed the 5 components of CSPAP. We have not talked about the process for CSPAP. For 1305, you're responsible for both. I'm going to share with you what it means to establish a CSPAP, implement a CSPAP, and evaluate a CSPAP. You also want to think about this process over the next 5 years of your cooperative agreement. You're not expected to do everything in year 1. And so let's talk about what that means. Here's the step-by-step process for CSPAP. There's 7 steps. Establish a team or committee and designate a physical activity leader. Conduct a needs assessment. Create a vision, goals, and objectives. Identify intended outcomes. Develop your CSPAP plan. Implement and evaluate. We're going to discuss each one of these in detail. This should also help you think about the type of professional development and technical assistance you should offer to your selected school districts and schools. The first 5 of the 7 steps in the CSPAP process are considered establishing a CSPAP. I'm going to say that again because I want to make sure everybody gets that. The first 5 of the 7 steps in the CSPAP process are considered establishing a CSPAP. So let's go through each one of these. Step 1 is to establish a CSPAP team or committee. This is what you're helping your selected districts to do. Here are the roles and responsibilities of this team or committee. The team should be a subcommittee of an existing school health council or school wellness committee. They should represent a diverse group of education and health professionals and serve in an advisory and decision-making role for establishing, implementing, and evaluating the CSPAP. The team participates in policy development, resource planning, and budgeting for CSPAP. They enhance the coordination of CSPAP, and they should have administrative support and be willing to meet on a regular basis. Also part of step 1 is to designate a physical activity leader called PAL. The leader should be a physical education teacher. However, another teacher or school champion that wants to lead CSPAP is also appropriate. The PAL is leading all the CSPAP efforts. They are responsible for coordinating the CSPAP committee, working with the school health coordinator and other school staff, facilitating linkages between the CSPAP and the community, organizing and facilitating all CSPAP meetings, and of course managing the funds of CSPAP and sustaining CSPAP. Once the CSPAP team is in place and a PAL has been designated, so your leader has been designated, the second step is to identify existing physical activity policies, programs, and practices in the school. This will help develop goals, objectives, and activities for CSPAP. Here are 3 assessment tools you can use. None of them are perfect, but they are a good starting place. The School Health Index, the School Healthy Schools Program Inventory. This is the assessment that Let's Move Active Schools encourages you to use, and then the School Physical Activity Assessment. The third step is for the school to have a vision statement, clear goals, and measurable objectives. And most of you all are familiar with vision statements, goals, and objectives, so I'm going to go briefly through this. A vision statement provides a shared sense of purpose. It provides a framework for establishing goals, objectives, and activities for CSPAP. It also provides implications for how CSPAP is organized. Goals describe the long-term results or impact of CSPAP. So they establish the overall direction for and focus of a program, and very importantly, goals serve as the foundation for developing program objectives. And then the objectives describe the program results to be achieved and how they will be achieved. And you really want them to use SMART objectives. The objectives have specific timelines for accomplishment and align nicely with the goals of the program. And so let's look at an example. Here's an example of a vision statement: active students, active schools. An example of a goal would be increase the number of students that participate in at least 60 minutes of physical activity daily. And an example of an objective would be by the end of year 1, 90% of students in grades K through 5 will use a daily log to record their moderate to rigorous physical activity. And you can see how all these align. The fourth step is to identify intended outcomes for your CSPAP. You want schools and districts to know early on what changes they want to see as a result of CSPAP. Specifically, you want them to look at changes in knowledge, attitudes, skills, behaviors, status, or level of functioning. And we want to see these changes across 3 different time blocks: short-term, intermediate, and long-term. Identifying these intended outcomes will help them to identify indicators to monitor progress over time. So for example, a school-level outcome might be increased amount of time dedicated to PE for all students. The school-level indicator would be number of minutes dedicated to PE during the school day. So again, it helps us identify those indicators. The fifth step is really, really important. It's putting everything together in a plan that will need to be implemented. To develop this plan, you want to use the assessment results to identify current and needed resources. This will help you select the physical activities offered. You want to remember that you want to consider all 5 components of CSPAP. You also need to identify specific times for physical activity to be held and identify activity spaces and facilities. You want other teachers and staff on board so you can identify them as activity leaders. The budget needs to be developed in this plan, and through the planning process, sustainability strategies for your CSPAP need to be discussed. And of course, finally, communication and marketing strategies are essential. It might take you a year to get your selected districts and schools to establish a CSPAP. To do that is to do these first 5 steps in the CSPAP process. Now I'm going to talk about the last 2 steps: implement and evaluate. As part of the implementation plan, it is important to document what will be done, by whom, when, and how. This plan serves as a checklist for the committee and aligns with the goals and objectives. Here are 3 possible implementation approaches to consider. A pilot, which is a small-scale implementation plan as a test or trial. This strategy allows the committee to refine the program or activity and demonstrate success and results for broader support and approval. A phased implementation is a strategy to initiate a new program or process so that different parts of the school implement the change at different times and with varying intensity levels. Phased implementation allows the committee to manage time, resources, and expectations by implementing change in phases. And finally, a full-scale implementation means employing all resources and implementing each strategy. It's not limited or partial implementation. So this step is really about putting your CSPAP plan you developed in step 5 into action. And then the last step, evaluating a CSPAP. The purpose of evaluation is to be able to describe and understand programs, plan for programs, and improve programs. There are 2 types of evaluation: process and outcome. Process evaluation is who, what, when, where, and how much. For example, who showed up to the activities, how many people attended before and after school activities, and when, where, or were activities held, and how often. Whereas outcome evaluation is what happened as a result of the program or policy. Did the program or policy impact school and student level outcomes, such as recess policies or more students participating in more physical activity? Again, those are the 2 types that you have to think about or get your districts and schools to think about. And then conducting an evaluation should be part of program planning. Up front, you want to know what will be evaluated. How will the evaluation be conducted? Who will conduct the evaluation? These are very important questions. And don't forget that you want to use the data to share your success and plan, again, for the future. So we just went through all 7 steps really quickly of the CSPAP process. We learned that the first 5 are used to establish a CSPAP, and that implement a CSPAP and evaluate are their own steps. As I mentioned, it might take you a year and even up to a year and a half to get your schools and your selected districts to establish a CSPAP. The rest of the time will be spent on the implementing and evaluating the CSPAP. We now have another question for you before I get into the last section of my presentation. This activity is going to be extremely informative to us in terms of developing new resources and planning for future trainings. So, Amparo, do you want to share what you need to do?
So hopefully you see on your screen now a question, well, not really a question, a statement on what you would like more information about. Any of these topics, just click on any, you can click on more than one of the responses that you would like to receive more information about. And we'll give you just a moment, and then we'll share what everybody wants more information about. All right, so I will open my results page in just a second. And hopefully, I'm not showing any responses.
Oh, that's okay. I mean,
can we type in the Q&A? Are people able to click on any of the responses on the survey? Let us know in the Q&A pane. Do you see the survey? And if you see the survey, can you click on any of the boxes?
That they were able to click on the box.
Because when I go to my results page, I'm not showing any responses. Let's give it another second.
They can no longer see the survey.
Can't see the survey?
I see the survey, but
yeah. All right, let's see what's happening with the responses.
well, that's okay. Actually, I mean, so and I think what we can do is we can do a follow-up to participants, because it would be really helpful for us to know what topics and what aspect of the process you need more information about. So it will really inform, like I said, us developing new resources and planning for future training. So, Amparo, would that be possible to send the survey out to them?
Yes, yes. And I'll also check after we get offline for the survey, for the responses that did come in, because we did get some responses that people were able to click. So we'll send out the survey and also compile the responses that did come in. Thank you.
Great, great. Well, let's see. I'll move here. So now I know you're thinking, what resources are available to me to help my school districts and schools establish, implement, and evaluate CSPAP? The good news is there are resources available to you, and so what I want to do is first go over this particular slide here. I hope this slide helps you understand how Let's Move Active Schools, CSPAP, PAL, and the Presidential Youth Fitness Program all work together, and they're all resources to you. So the Let's Move, I'm going to start at the very top. Let's Move Active Schools is the national initiative to get schools more active in schools. CSPAP, or the Comprehensive School Physical Activity Program, is the framework used by this national initiative. It's also what you're responsible for in implementing as part of 1305. We are not requiring your schools or the schools in your state to be an active school in terms of Let's Move Active Schools, but we really encourage it, and I'll share with you in a few minutes why. The training mechanism for both Let's Move Active Schools and CSPAP is the Physical Activity Leader Training, PAL. This training is for school-level staff to learn how to lead and implement a CSPAP. And the key component of both Let's Move Active Schools and CSPAP, because they're using the same, Let's Move Active Schools is using the CSPAP framework, is physical education. It's the foundational piece of the puzzle. And the Presidential Youth Fitness Program provides great training and resources for physical education. I'll now discuss each of these in more detail in terms of how they can help you. So many of you have probably seen the Let's Move Active Schools website. There's plenty of great resources. This is where you would encourage the schools in your state to register for it. But here's what you really should know about Let's Move Active Schools. You want to get the schools in your selected districts to sign up to be an active school at letsmoveactiveschools.org. And the reason why is because these schools that are part of this become an active school, they can request a PAL training, although they must have 50 or more participants to attend. But again, if you're working with your state and you have multiple districts and multiple schools within those districts, I'm sure you can get up to 50 participants. Those schools that sign up can ask for technical assistance to help them implement CSPAP. So it takes off some of the burden off your time and your staff's time. And also schools will be able to connect to a PAL network, and meaning they have peer support as well. Here's what you should know about the PAL training. The PAL training is a 12 to 18-month process that will be specifically for physical education and classroom teachers. Prior to engaging in the PAL experience, teachers will be required to do some pre-work to get a sense of their baseline knowledge. They will then attend a one-day training to learn all about a comprehensive school physical activity program. And teachers that attend the training will also be connected to a virtual network of other PALs. And as I said, information about the training can be found on letsmoveschools.org site that I showed you at the very beginning. I showed you a few minutes ago. AFERD will also be providing training of trainers for states on the PAL training system. So you'll be able to create your own state trainers and provide training to your own schools and school districts if you want. I don't have dates for these trainings yet, but they are coming, and we'll be sure to keep you informed. And make sure to touch base with your project officer. Another thing that you need to know about is that this month, CDC will release a guide for developing comprehensive physical activity programs to enable physical education teachers and other physical activity leaders to develop, implement, and evaluate a CSPAP. The guide provides a brief introduction to a CSPAP. It covers the definition and components like I did today, but of course in a little bit more detail. It also goes into a lot of detail of the process of a CSPAP, which I only covered briefly today. And the guide also provides templates and other tools for a CSPAP team to use to develop, implement, and evaluate their CSPAP. CDC will provide webinars and technical assistance on the CSPAP guide. So stay tuned for that information as well. The Presidential Youth Fitness Program focuses on fitness assessment as a tool for goal setting and program planning. Teachers use the information gathered to teach valuable fitness concepts that can influence lifelong health and incorporate motivational recognition to help keep students inspired and engaged throughout the process. So let me just be clear here. We want schools in your state to be participating in both the Presidential Youth Fitness Program as well as the Let's Move Active Schools initiative. There's, again, multiple resources within these two programs for your schools and school districts. Here's what you should also know about the Presidential Youth Fitness Program. They provide resources to support health-related fitness assessment and quality physical education instruction. They provide webinars on a variety of topics on fitness assessment. They've developed and launched the Success with the Presidential Youth Fitness Program virtual training program, which is a two-hour introductory training that provides information on the key areas addressed by the program. They will also provide in-person training. Something else you should know is that grants will be available for local schools in 2014, so you should encourage your schools and your state to apply. Understanding these pieces that I've laid out here and how they fit together is key in planning the professional development and technical assistant opportunities for CSPAP in your state. So you can understand what's free or low cost and available to you and what's coming up so that you can figure out what your plan might be. What I want to end on is, if you're thinking, now what should I do? Here are some possible next steps for you to consider and what I would encourage you to think about. You want to really make sure your districts and schools understand the CSPAP component and process. You want to focus on establishing a CSPAP this year, unless, of course, your schools already have done, if they've already established the CSPAP, then, of course, you want to move on to the implementation phase, but you'll be able to know that if you work with the targeted LEAs to identify a needs assessment process to determine where schools are in the process, whether they're in the developing phase, the implementing phase, or evaluating phase. A couple other things you should think about. Based on the results of the assessment, establish a list of professional development offerings in your state. The courses that you would offer, and existing courses. I talked about several things. Let's move active schools, what's available from them, Presidential Youth Fitness Program, what CDC might be offering, what other partners might be offering. Stay tuned. We hope to have some more information about that. And you also want to work with key partners in your state to help provide professional development and TA. And then lastly, which is not on here, but be sure to check in with your project officer about upcoming professional development events and other resources that are related to CSPAP. With that, I think that's it. We can move on to the Q&A section.
All right. So I don't believe we have had any questions come in, have we? So at this point, feel free to type them in now into your Q&A window if you have any questions for Shannon. It doesn't look like anyone is asking questions, but we will have the survey shortly to have more information about what you want more information about. And we'll also have an evaluation coming out very shortly in your email. We just want to know how this experience was for you. And as Shannon mentioned, stay tuned for more information on more offerings. And we'll also have more information about this presentation slide set. Shannon, do you have any last words?
No, but I do see a couple questions coming in from some folks.
Okay.
Maybe I can just answer a few of these.
Great.
They said, will this webinar be archived? Our goal is that, yes, that it will be, that we'll be able to provide the slides with the notes as well. So we hope to have that out soon. Please check in with your project officer and let them, and just ask if they are available. We will definitely send out a note about that when they are available. And then we had a question about when will the CDC guide for CSPAP be available. It was supposed to be out before the training today. We hope that it will be out either later this week or next week is what we're shooting for. We had another question. Can you talk about the 2012 Shape of the Nation report and the 10 policy component? I'm not sure exactly what kind of detail you're looking for, but again, the Shape of the Nation report is what we're actually using to inform where you are in terms of the 10 policies, the 10 multi-component policies for physical education. And there's different aspects of the report. Again, it's self-report. So again, depending on who's responding to the questionnaire or the question, in terms of accuracy or what you believe. But again, you might want to find out who in your state answering those questions And because, again, this is going to be captured again, and we want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And also in terms of your planning, in terms of how, planning for what policy to try to adopt in your state. I don't know if that answers the question that you were looking for. I'm not sure what kind of information you were looking for in terms of the 2012 Shape of the Nation report. We had a question about the 50-plus person requirement for PAL training is actually a significant barrier for rural states. Are we to understand that we will be able to do the same training at the state level through the TOT process? Yes, actually, yes, it is. APRID will be offering the TOT to different folks, so folks at your state level can attend and become trainers, and then you can go out and train folks in your state. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see all the questions, Amparo.
Did you say the one about can a district sign up as Let's Move Active School or only school sites individually?
I believe it's only schools. Let me double check on that. I'm not 100. When you're talking about establishing a CSPAP, are you talking about at the school level or district level? I'm talking. That's a very good question. In terms of your performance measure, it's at the school level. So in terms of meeting your performance measure, we're talking about the school level. But again, the districts need to be involved in helping the schools accomplish that.
And I think those are all the questions, other than the availability of the archive of this webinar.
Great.
All right, so we thank you for joining today, and please do complete the evaluation form that you'll be receiving in just a few moments, and we'll be in touch with you again regarding the survey that you were not able to take during today's webinar. We do apologize for that little glitch, and we will resolve it for next time, we promise. Thank you for calling.
Thank you for participating in today's conference. Please disconnect at this time.